So I've got several friends who are backyard beekeepers, and they keep bees really as a sign of hope. I mean, that's really what it is. It's, in the one hand, it's to care for the planet, it's to help pollinate the fruits and the flowers, and maybe they get a little bit of honey, but really, it's an act of hope, and that's what they're doing. Amy McKay is a Canadian writer, and she and her husband live up in Nova Scotia, and they keep winter bees. Winter bees are a little different from your average every ordinary day bee. They live like 6 times longer, basically because they stay in the hive and they have a less stressful life. And they only come out like once or twice during the winter for these kind of cleansing flights. And the weather has to be just perfect. It has to be a little bit above freezing and sunny and no wind. And McKay says she just loves it when the bees come out on these cleansing flights. It feels like seeing a shooting star or running into a good friend on the street you haven't seen in a long time. And they come out very briefly, just long enough to stretch their wings and leave a little gold dust on the snow. And then if she sits still, one of them will light on her arm and they can kind of have a conversation and check in. But she worries about the bees during the winter. She worries she can't see them, of course, right? They're there in the bee box, and she's not sure, you know, are they warm enough, and are they okay, and do they have enough honey to make it through the winter? And so sometimes after a really big snowstorm, she'll trudge through the snow and she'll put her head against the box and try to hear if she can hear the bees. If she can't, she'll kind of knock on it, listen and see if they're humming. If she doesn't hear a hum, you know, then she worries. So her husband finally got her a stethoscope so that she could listen in for the bees. She said that was a real act of love. It makes me think about the birds we talked about last week, right? How they fly over our home at night, migrating. They fly at night to avoid the hawks and to follow the stars to their breeding grounds. And we can't see them, right? We can't see this resurrection going on over our houses. All of these birds flying on the way to give birth to new life. So you can go outside though, and you can look up to the heavens, and you can cup your ears, and you can hear them calling, right? You can hear the resurrection. And I've been thinking about that stethoscope, and that sometimes it's like we need to go around with the stethoscope, right? When the world, the roar of death and war is so heavy, it's like you need that stethoscope to just listen, right? To just try to find the sounds of new life in the heavens, out and about, everywhere, and also on our own heart too, right? To kind of try to listen and see and hear. Is there new life stirring here? Is there hope? Is there possibility? Last week, I mentioned that I had started volunteering at Operation Breakthrough. I'd only been thinking about it for 35 years. When I moved here in '87, it had only been going 15 years, and it was a couple of classrooms then at 31st and Troost, and now it's a couple of city blocks, right? And they serve 700 kids whose parents are trying to decide between milk for the cereal and gas for the car. And after I heard Ellen Wilson, one of our teachers, talk about filling up the wings of her kindergartners during COVID, I thought, you know, I can get down to Operation Breakthrough. I knew that a lot of the older volunteers had to step back because of COVID, that there were classes where they'd have 6 grandmothers in a class who would rock the babies and hold the kids and help. So I finally decided, got my application in, and then of course, they shut down, then they opened back up, and it wasn't a quick process. It wasn't just a background check, it was getting fingerprints and getting a TB test at the health department and paying and all this. And finally, when I was cleared, they'd shut back down. Then they opened back up. And so I got in there last fall, and I volunteered for a couple of months on Mondays in Purple 5, one of the kindergarten classrooms. And they shut down. Then they opened back up in February, and I just decided I'm not going to go back because I'm busy. I've gotten busier with the church, and I already have 2 weekly volunteer commitments that I do. And sometimes I travel on Mondays to see my parents. And when the volunteer coordinator, Kelly, reached out, I told her all that. And then I told her the truth too, which is that I'm not really very good at it. You know, I really don't have a lot of confidence as a teacher. I have a lot of respect for teachers, and I'm not natural at it, and I don't really have any background in it. And I was like, I don't really think I'm connected with, you know, everybody's got a mask on, it's hard to connect. I usually just come in there and I start cleaning and sanitizing because the teachers are so stressed and all of that stuff had to be on top of it. I said, I really appreciate it, but I'm just not very good at it. And of course, 10 minutes later, I get an email back from her. Oh, Miss Jenny, Miss Tequila, they would love to have you there. They're super busy and they've got kindergarten readiness going on and all the kids are behind. And you know, it's like, you got to get the stethoscope out, right? And like believe in yourself that like you could teach a kid the difference between a color and a shape, right? These kind of things. So this morning we hear Thomas, and he's got the stethoscope out too. He's not really sure that there's new life that can be trusted. And unfortunately, you know, for you writers, you know, a lot of times you can put a title on something, it doesn't really make much difference, but you can put a title on something and it completely changes how we read it. And unfortunately, this guy's been called Doubting Thomas instead of Seeking Thomas or Searching Thomas or Unsure but Still Showing Up Thomas, right? I mean, there are a lot of more positive spins that could be put on this, just like Christianity could have emerged, like our good friends, the Jewish people, more of a system based on behaviors than beliefs. And instead of kind of this thought police, that Christianity is really all about believing the right thing instead of behaving and doing the right thing. I mean, imagine instead if this passage could have been read as, isn't this interesting how differently people come to faith? Because to be generous to Thomas, first of all, the gospel writer in John has just taken all the other questioning disciples and followers in the other gospels and collapsed him into this composite character right here, just to make the story simpler. And Thomas doesn't really ask for anything that everybody else didn't get. He just happened to be out getting, you know, Coke or, you know, cereal or something when Jesus showed up the first time. And he just wanted to see. And what you really have in this passage is kind of different ways people live and come to faith. So you've got the beloved disciple. He just sees the empty tomb, right? And he knows this is, you know, your EFNJ on the Myers-Briggs, right? Just senses, feels, is in. And then you got Mary Magdalene. She's got to hear. And then you've got some of the other disciples that got to see. And then you've got Thomas that's got to touch. I mean, just different ways that people come to faith, as opposed to, you know, there's only one right way to believe and only one right journey and only one right path. I like what Sharon Ring, the New Testament scholar, says, that John, at the best in this gospel, is describing a community of friends. Isn't that a beautiful, you know, that's what a church is, a community of friends, or maybe even more, a community of encouraging friends, a community of encouragement. That's what I'm looking for. I listen to this podcast called At Liberty. The ACLU puts it out weekly, usually weekly, and I listen to it because it covers things I care about: Supreme Court, prison reform, labor, immigration. It's really well done. But most importantly, oh my gosh, they've got the most remarkable people on there. These kind of young activists and artists and community volunteers, and there's one guy, I heard him in January. I think I'm listening to his interview now 6 or 7 times. His name is Joel Castone, and he really mainly does like prison reform and prison renewal. He graduated from Georgetown as a black guy. That's not super common. He speaks French and Spanish and Arabic. He's learning Mandarin and Hindi. He's developed this program called Young Men Emerging, where he teaches men in prison financial literacy and citizenship. He teaches them about banking. They've got a partnership with banks where people can invest. He's teaching them about the stock market. He wants them to come out and hit the ground running. And he also is an elected official in Washington, D.C. His neighborhood ward is where the prison is, and the Harriet Tubman Women's Shelter, and these high-end apartments. And he also finds time every day to do yoga and meditate and pray and to call his mother, who he calls the Queen. And he's done all of this stuff from inside prison, because he went in when he was 18, and he came out last December when he was 45. He did all of that while he was in prison. And he is just so remarkable to listen to, not just because of what he's done, but because his voice is so infectious. Like the guy interviewing him said, your joy is palpable. I mean, you can just touch it when you hear this guy. This guy is not like the glass is half full, the glass is all the way full. I mean, he reminds me of, remember when Barack Obama spoke in 2004 at the Democratic Convention, and everybody's like, who is that guy? He's going somewhere. That's when you hear this guy. It's just like this guy, he's got a page of his logbook of resurrection filled before he gets out of bed and starts brushing his teeth, right? Now, most of us are not that person, right? Most of us, we need a little bit of, going out, looking in the heavens, maybe a stethoscope. But his life shows us something, doesn't it? it shows us that there's so much resurrection out there. And unless we go out there, guess what? We miss it, right? So I went back to Operation Breakthrough because Miss Jenny and Miss Tequila needed me. And of course, you know what happened. The kids ran up to me and threw their arms around me like I was the most loyal, faithful volunteer and said I hadn't been there 2 months. And then they set me right down at the table with the little worksheet with one of the little girls who was trying to work on matching uppercase letters to lowercase letters. She didn't really know any of them until we got to the big A. And then she was supposed to take her pencil and draw a line from the big A to the little a. And instead she started on this little journey. I'm gonna get you, baby A. I'm gonna find you hiding under the teacup, baby A. Are you under the little bush? Are you in Mama's shoe? Mama's gonna get you, little baby A. And she got the baby. And then she went to every single letter. It was like this story and then this song. And this little girl, she was a genius. I mean, in just the life and the resurrection. And then I sat down with the next girl, and she was supposed to work an addition. We were counting whales and fish and minnows, and she was good at it. But she wrote her name at the top of the page, and she wrote her Y backwards. And when you've got a Y in your name, you got to know it, right? So after we were done with addition, we turned it back over, and we made big Y's and little Y's and big Y's until she could make Y's with her eyes closed. And then again, we went outside and we ran on the playground and we filled up our wings and breathed. And I had that aha moment, of knowing, you know why I'm there, right? I'm there why people keep bees and why people have children, why people plant trees and go on hikes, because I'm looking for a glimpse of resurrection. And there was that other aha moment. If I kept doubting myself, I would just miss so damn much of it, right? Some of us are like that guy. We're just overwhelmed with resurrection. It just pours out of us. Some of us, we got to go outside and listen, right? Put our heads back and hear. Some of us got to get the stethoscope out day. Okay, still alive. Everywhere, every way, however it is, right? Because what we're trying to do in this Easter season is look and listen and lean in and step out and be bold so that we can put our own name, Holly with a Y, in the logbook of resurrection. Amen.
Amen.